Screwed.
Okay, maybe this will work actually. Okay, I hope you guys can hear me. Hello, Shadow Divers. Welcome to another reaction stream, because why not? Why not? I've just been watching all the YouTubes, and it's time to share some wisdom and explore. So let's see what we got. I'm just going to set up chat real quick, and then we can get started. Hope your weekend is all going very well. I actually wanted to start with this one VA, ToskaVA, that's voice actor, who I watched some of these videos, and it's all about sins and virtues. And I really like them because he does kind of a psychodynamic Freudian kind of thing where he's like, okay, what are the shadow sides of each of these? So let's just jump in. We're going to start with sins, then virtues, and then go from there. All right. Oh, look, and I immediately got a bot. Add to restream block list. Thanks, assholes. If you're a bot, I don't care about my viewer counts. I don't care about wisdom. I'll rather have 0 views than get the robots in. So let's see what we got here. Wait, let me restart it. Well, let's start again. We'll make it theater mode.
What sin do you relish the most? Wrath. Outrageous. My fury is justified. My anger is pure. You wear vengeance like armor, but it corrodes from within. You will become what you aim to destroy.
This is genuinely a thing. I work with a lot of people who have anger management issues. And it's like, where does this come from? A lot of it comes from vengeance. A lot of it comes from there's a few different reasons, but ultimately the idea is it takes on a life of its own, and you really do become something you hate or something you would have hated back in the day. Well, how do I turn this on?
Greed. How insatiable. I only want what's mine, and theirs, and his, and yours. The more you take, the less you'll have. You will starve surrounding my gold.
Genuinely very, very... I work with some wealthy people as well, and I certainly don't mind riches. I certainly don't mind wealth. I love wealth. I just dress horribly and don't know how to spend it properly. But the concept is like, okay, I need the Lamborghini. I need the big house. I need my wife covered in jewels and whatever else. And it's like, yeah, and then what? Exactly when do you become satiated? When is enough enough? And in a lot of ways, the quiet wealth, the stealth wealth, the entire idea of like, I have a few million in the bank, but no one knows about it, is the perfect system, because these are the people who weren't going to spend it anyway. I guess a better way to put it would be, a lot of the times the flaunting, and usually in the most garish way possible, a lot of times the flaunting of wealth is a defense mechanism, a way to show the world or try to convince the world that you are actually worthy, that you are actually functional, that you're being the person who you're supposed to be. It really is a voracious thing that never actually ends for some people. Never satiated, never feel good enough, never feel like this is enough. Scarcity. So I want to talk about scarcity. Yes, real quick. You have the scarcity mindset. The idea is that you will never have enough. That there is, even if you have all the time, energy, attention, and money in the world, it's still not going to feel that way. You're still going to want more and more, because it never feels like you're going to be safe. If you have the abundance mindset, it's like, no, I can do fine with what I have, or at the very least, even if I don't have what I need, I can find ways to get it. It's much more trusting of yourself. I can handle myself. I can trust myself and trust the world. So,
Envy. How inspiring. I see what others have, and I ache to take it for myself. Your gaze lingers too long on others' light. In time, you'll forget how to kindle your own.
envy definitely, I don't mind desire. Desire's fine. I love desire. I also love the satiation of desire. You can pursue what you want. I think a lot of times envy comes not because you necessarily want the thing, but because the other person has it. It's like, I don't know, it's like the Lamborghini. I don't fucking want a Lamborghini. I don't want what the neighbor has. But let's say you're the kind of person who also doesn't want a Lamborghini, but the envy takes a life on of its own. It's like, oh, now I do want one because the neighbor has it. Now, that's one way it expresses itself. There's a few other ways it definitely can.
How tender. I long for touch, to feel alive again. You seek warmth in a fleeting fire. It will burn you hollow and leave you cold.
I don't really like that one just because lust is pretty nice. I do like sex.
Sloth. How restful. The world moves too fast. I crave stillness, and I want no part in its frenzy. Your apathy will rot your will. Even the soul needs motion, lest it wither in place. Soul needs apathy.
This one really gets to me. The world does move incredibly fast. I think it's moving faster the more we douse and overwhelm ourselves with information, especially information on the other side of the planet, on the other side of the country, for involving people we have no actual information on and we have no direct or even indirect connections to. So, stillness and the avoidance of the frenzy, avoidance of the world, really. I think this is one of the reasons why people are becoming more and more hikikomori, why people are checking out and just staying at home and ordering DoorDash and playing video games and waiting to die. It's like if I can slow myself down, if I can just like make it so that the world is just something outside, something that I don't have to engage in ever, then at the very least, I'm not consumed by it. I'm not overwhelmed by it. And I certainly don't mind rest. If you need to take some time to do the cabin in the woods, absolutely go for it. But it has to end at a certain point. You have to get back to work, or at the very least to action. Maybe it's not work, maybe it's fun, maybe it's play, maybe it's going to the beach and being the best surfer there, or at least decent enough, a fun enough surfer. If you're doing literally nothing, it's not only checking out, it's degeneration. Your body and mind will not only stagnate, but start to fall apart. And there's a few mechanisms by which that happens, but take my word for it. Yes, I am reading chat. I don't know what you need, Fable Mop. Let's see.
Your apathy will rot your will. Even the soul needs motion, lest it wither in place. Pride. How noble. I've carved myself from stone. I bow to no one. Even statues crack, and when you fall, no one will dare to catch you.
That one's a big one. Let me take one thing back. When statues crack and when you fall, no one will dare to catch you. I think pride is incredibly isolating. Well, or at the very least, arrogance. is incredibly isolating. I do like self-pride, self-love to a certain extent, and God knows my horribly depressed clients need a lot more self-love, a lot more objective assessment. Like, I am actually a human being who deserves love and affection as a birthright. I am the king of the shit, and here's my accomplishments and here's my accolades. But arrogance, when an arrogant man, I'm going to use man, when an arrogant man reaches out for help after being the emperor, being the king, or really just being a tyrant for an incredibly long period of time, it's not just, I want your friends, your allies want nothing to do with you because you're a dick. It's also, oh, if this person can fall, if this person is collapsing right now, I can already kind of see what impact it's going to have on me, on my family, on the people around me. Even associating with this person is something that's going to get me caught up in the wake. Now, you could say, right, that's a social problem, Steve, not necessarily an internal one. But I think it's kind of the same thing. It's not just, hey, I'm going to be a loss of reputation in my community. It's also, wait, here's the emperor. This person's falling, and now I'm not necessarily losing my mind. I need to make some sort of emotional distance. There we go. Because even if you're not really attached to this person, even if you don't like them, but let's just say you work for them, or let's just say you are, you have some sort of professional or acquaintanceship. It's like, this is a kind of person who will bring you down with him. The arrogance precludes anyone either being on the same level or being higher. Be aware of that.
Gluttony. How delectable. This world has prepared me a vast banquet, and I will be fooled to not partake of it. And when the beast's flesh runs scarce, you would brandish your fangs against your fellow man. Be soon that you've become.
Yeah. This one's a little more fantastical, but I think there's a lot of truth to it allegorically. It's not just gluttony in the sense of, hey, I go to the Japanese buffet a little too much and I've gained a few pounds. The entire idea of more, and more than just a greed sense, just in the sense of like, this is so good I can't stop myself, even after I've satiated, even after I've reached a point of overwhelm, whether in pleasure or gambling or sex or drugs or whatever it is. It's the same idea. It's the same concept of more is never enough. And you see this with rather extreme addictions. As soon as you're not being satiated constantly, the lashing out happens. And yeah, it can be, I'm sure it's frustrating for the person who's actually lashing out and trying to be a vampire and trying to suck people dry. But it's also like, yeah, the people around you don't want to put up with that crap. So, and that was What Sin Do You Relish the Most by ToskaVA. So, yay. Go check his thing out. And let's see. Let's take this a little further. I want to also do a virtue one. And then I really like the virtue one because in psychodynamics, in psychoanalysis, you want to assess what virtues you have and the virtues of the people around you and really ask yourself, how am I using this to cover up something cowardly, immoral, unethical, or something bad about myself? Whatever bad means in this context. Let's see. And let's do. I don't know why it starts like this. There we go.
What virtue is your pursuit? Temperance.
miserly.
All things in moderation, all things in balance. You will live a middle life, buried in a middle grave.
This one really freaks me out. I think temperance. Now, most people use temperance in regards to pleasure, enjoyment, things like that. But I think in a lot of ways, it is the avoidance of intensity, the avoidance of maybe conviction in a lot of ways, taking actions, taking determined steps for your own advocacy, for your own desires.
Patience. How cowardly. They had stayed as an eye saved. Ashes build no homes. Tides will rise regardless. Fight or be swept away.
I really like this one. A hand stayed as an eye saves. Ashes build no homes. I think a certain amount of forgiveness can be really helpful in a lot of ways, in a lot of situations. But I think that a lot of people mistake forgiveness or really mercy for avoidance, for trying to just avoid cowardly, really cowardice. Like he said, cowardice. Um, Tides will rise regardless, fight or be swept away. I think powerlessness is a big thing. I help people find their fangs, especially people pleasers, especially people who are in the savior mode or who have a significant amount of guilt they're carrying around and shame. And I basically have to tell them you're allowed to be here too. You're even allowed to fight to be here too. And it's hard to convince some people, but it is definitely worth it.
Is regardless, fight or be swept away. Humility. How meek. To love myself is praise enough. To know your worth, lest others set it for you.
Okay. I do some corporate consulting sometimes, and this needs to be tattooed on all W-2 employees' eyelids. Know your worth, lest others set it for you. And I need this tattooed on everyone, whether you're, W-2, 1099, starting your own business, whatever. The narrative is that you do need to know your worth. You do need to say, I am worth this X, Y, and Z, both in the sense of a salary and compensation, but also just in your sense of like, this is me as a human being. This is me as a person. This is me deserving things, deserving to be here too. And yeah. Also, I think it really does. I think the second half, lest others set it for you. People will try to cut you down. People will try to keep you weak just so that they can have control over you. And it's like, you see this in, I don't know, Star Wars or something where it's like, oh, here's this tyrannical organization or something. But I think it's much more subtle than that. I think it's just office passive aggressiveness. Some ticked off, kind of cowardly, passive aggressive middle manager who's your boss, cutting you down because they're just ticked off that day, or maybe they're just a mean old cuss in the first place. What we got? Going through electrical engineering has made me realize how much we make ourselves suffer unnecessarily. We need to remind ourselves every day that we're going to die. I want a tattoo. Life is meaningless and we're all going to die. I do think a life is objectively meaningless, as in this, as an existentialist counselor for existential truths. Life is objectively meaningless. We are existentially alone. Freedom is a burden. And what was the last one? It was we're all going to die. I don't remember. I need to look that up later. But it's incredibly powerful once you kind of grapple with that. If life is objectively meaningless, you get to set your own subjective meaning. Sometimes you need to find it. Sometimes you need to build it. most of the time that's agonizing, but it is absolutely worth it to do so. So, and yes, definitely we're all going to die. If you want a good book, Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I think it was his fourth chapter where he talks about remembering, memento mori, remembering that one day you're going to die will fill you with meaning, will fill you with the drive to accomplish the things you want to accomplish, to live the life you want, to find the connections you want. Yeah, I definitely need to reread that one of these days. I don't know. I wanted to do a reading stream at some point. I might do that with Four Agreements. I love that book. It's pretty short.
Charity. How chauvinist. We save those who cannot save themselves. True gifts are free from expectation. They do not owe you their saving.
This I really love. They do not owe you their saving. All right. If someone's reaching for help while they're drowning, pull out grab them. But I work in a field with the martyr narrative and the savior narrative. And I don't mind altruism. I don't mind being like, hey, I do like helping people who can't help themselves. But so many people are in the I need to save others, or else I need to be a savior or have someone to save. There's an old movie called Bringing Out the Dead with Nicolas Cage, and it's basically about an EMT who hasn't saved people in a while, and he's losing his mind because he got a rush from it. That was his meaning. And seeing as though the people he keeps on trying to save keep on dying, or he just doesn't get the opportunity to do so, he's slowly devolving mentally. I don't think it's that bad for my fellow counselors, but I like to put it like this. I like helping people, but if everyone reaches enlightenment tomorrow and I have to become a farmer or make a mostly fans or something like that, I'm okay. I don't need to be a savior. I don't need to be the person that people look up to and be like, no one owes me. No one owes me their saving. I'll just put it that way. So if you have trouble with that maybe become a social worker.
Diligence. How restless. Labor enables man. Advancing purpose. Work is sacrifice. Today is for more than tomorrow's gain.
Yeah, this one's a tough one just because I'm a very future-oriented person. And it is kind of an effort to be more present-oriented, but it's the entire idea of live like today's your last day. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, then I'm going to the strip club. Then I'm taking out all of my assets. Then I'm doing whatever. It's like, well, maybe there needs to be an integration. Future orientation while enjoying the day. Or maybe just being able to recognize that you can enjoy life even as you work, even as you engage in. I want to stop. Actually, I'm not saying it correctly. Don't make the payday the be all end all. Enjoy the moment a little bit.
Chastity. How prudish. I love through my body. It is my most precious gift. Joy shared is joy multiplied. Its lack does not create value.
Okay. I'm not supposed to dump my personal beliefs onto other people, especially my clients. But there seems to be a lot of specifically young men who are overcompensating. Maybe they've been surrounded by sluts and maybe a little too much sex and a little too much sluttery. And I like sluttery. I'm not trying to be shaming on people too much, but there's a lot of men who are now viewing sex as a sacred thing that is kind of busted out, I don't know, once a year, once a month. And it's like, no, this has to be a special thing. This thing that has to be perfect. And it's like, well, maybe it's just fun. Maybe it's just a game. Maybe it's just enjoyment between two people who love each other, or maybe just like each other, or maybe hate each other. And I mean, hate fucking is a thing. I don't suggest it, both as a clinician and as anything else. But yes, Fable Mop, I'm there with you. But the entire idea is like, yeah, we don't have to put it on a pedestal. Don't make it so sacred that you don't enjoy it anymore.
Kindness. How naive. A single candle can light the darkest day. You will burn from both ends until naught is left but memory.
Yeah, don't burn yourself out being kind to people. It's it will kill you. There is so much in the way of people who, he'll give you the shirt off his back, and it's like, well, maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe the idea is that guy needs to keep his shirt. Don't do more for another person where it becomes detrimental to you. All right, that was ToskaVA. I liked those two things. If you want to watch those things without my wonderful commentary, I link them in the description to this video. All right. I did want to go into Azahara and Armchair Expert, but maybe I should save that for later. Just copy this, because this was going to be a long thing about how to engage in really etiquette in the VTuber and streamer scene, but I might save that one for later. I want to check out Feral Historian, my boy. Let's see. Fable, I'm not quite sure if you're trying to type something and it's being filtered, or if you are trying to, or just cursing a lot. Let's see. Let's watch some Feral Historian. No links in chat, please. If you're trying to sell something or something else, you don't have to be here. All right, we're going to talk about my boy Feral Historian. He's a historian, but he wanders the mountains and talks about sci-fi stuff, which I really, really love.
Kaisar's Legion is by most accounts the most feared and brutal force in the Mojave. 87 wasteland tribes united into an army poised to seize New Vegas and deal a potentially fatal blow to the new California Republic. Kaisar himself, as I've come to understand him, is sort of Alexander the Great meets Lord Humongous, but a hedgehog, which will make a lot more sense as we unpack this. First, the Legion itself is a bit of an enigma. It's more a nomadic army than a nation, and yet it has managed to maintain law and order in its territory more successfully than the NCR, and is often claimed to be the most stable environment for commerce in the region. How one views the Legion depends very much on their priorities and morality. For some, they are nothing more than brutal slavers, an overgrown raider gang. Others point out that the roads are safe for merchants to travel and that a brutal world demands a brutal form of civilization.
And Legion, from what I've heard, they don't do the stop tolls on the roads or in the outposts like some NCR quartermasters do. Much as I hate the Legion, caravan life would be a hell of a lot easier if they ran the roads. Well, as long as those companies were run by men. And that's the biggest issue I see.
Back in the good old days of 2246, the land was dotted with little tribes. None of this idyllic, noble, savage bullshit. They were all murderous screwheads, but they all had their own cultures. Edward Sallow, a scientist with a group calling itself the Followers of the Apocalypse, was captured by one of these tribes, along with some colleagues, and a battle was looming. Facing the prospect of being slaughtered when his captors were defeated and their village taken.
It's one thing to be taken hostage, another to be lashed to a sinking ship. So over Calhoun's objections, I decided to take certain steps.
Yeah, have you ever captured by a random tribe? Try to take it over. See what's the worst they can do? Execute you twice?
Eddie decided his best shot at survival was to help them win by teaching them unit tactics on the level of their technology. And so he became a hero to the tribe and led them to many more conquests. At which point he upped the game and began forging the regional languages and cultures into a single Neo-Roman society in a strict and unforgiving, almost wasteland totalitarian super tribe.
It means a nationalist, imperialist, totalitarian, homogenous culture that obliterates the identity of every group it conquers.
It's important to note that Edward, now self-appointed Kaiser, didn't choose the Roman model out of delusion or mere classical fetishism. He's working within an ideological framework and he has clear goals. His choices are based on practicality. He picked Rome because he thinks it'll work.
In Rome, I found a template for a society equal to the challenges of the post-apocalyptic world. A society that could and would survive.
At least, that's what he says. Observation shows that he frequently does wildly impractical things. For example, after the Legion's first defeat by the NCR, he threw a hissy fit and had his second-in-command, Joshua Graham, set on fire and tossed into the Grand Canyon.
If you have people under you who might not be actually perfect or might fail sometimes, it's not a good idea to kill them. Maybe the modern equivalent would be firing them, depending on how severe it is. In some ways, a major screw-up is actually just training. The idea of like, okay, I've now spent a certain amount of money, lives, energy, attention, time on teaching this person what not to do, which is a very, very different way of viewing employment or viewing really a business side. But keep that in mind, I guess. But of course, don't. If you're that smart, don't be Caesar in the first place.
Because loyal commanders learning from experience isn't something the Legion is going to put up with.
Yeah, learning from experience.
Death is a common punishment for mission failure, even if it's due to circumstances beyond their control.
When another legatus or a centurion fails to achieve results, I send Linnaeus to make things right. His first step is to beat the failed commander to death in front of his assembled troops. Then he orders the ritual of decimatio.
The Legion almost defeats itself. Kaiser refuses to...
Decimatio, by the way, is decimation is killing 1 out of every 10. In fact, if you're in a squad of 10, the other 9 have to beat one of them to death. And it's like, right, this is a pretty screwed up thing. Don't do that either. Losing your population of warriors doesn't actually help you out that much either. I'm sure it's great for morale. I do wonder to what extent this is actually true. I know there's a lot of writing on decimation in like the Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire and certain other sources, but I don't really know how often it was achievable. Like, it would be really hard to... I think it would just be really hard to do that.
To use any mechanization in his army and even restricts firearms to certain units. Because in his worldview, war is not merely a means of exerting power, but an act of sacrifice. A sacrifice in blood that must not be sullied by cowardly, but utterly practical things like using long-range bombardment or robots. After the Legion's defeat at the First Battle of Hoover Dam, Kaiser Eddie never considers that his plan may have been flawed, that outside factors thwarted his army, or that perhaps his goal of uniting and civilizing the wasteland and militarily defeating the NCR at the dam were not the same objective. Conflating means and ends. After that defeat, instead of analyzing what happened, he blames subordinates. He has a vision of how the world should be, and he blames his own people when the world doesn't conform.
Okay, so he's going to go into this more, but this is something that people need to become aware of, especially if you're stubborn, especially if you have some rather extreme personality beliefs, political beliefs, religious beliefs, something like that, where being challenged on them or even just getting an alternative idea on them really causes you fury. I want the world to be a certain way. And if it's not, I'm going to blame the people in the world. I'm going to blame the world itself. And to some extent, I don't mind wanting to change the world, especially for the better. But so many people get caught up in this as a mix, yeah, I need the world to be what I think it is, rather than changing the mindset.
Part of this is that to Kaisar, retreat is not a tactical maneuver, but a moral failing. He has a very romanticized view of war, a view colored by his preferences and presuppositions more than objective assessment. We can't dismiss him as merely a liar or a delusional warlord. Kaiser is sincere because he is trapped in his own ideological framework. Going back a bit further than Rome, there is a fragment of Greek poetry that translates as, "The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing." In the 1950s, the political theorist Isaiah Berlin wrote an essay elaborating on the fox and the hedgehog as worldview archetypes. Applied to politics and philosophy, looking at the world through a single big idea ideology is hedgehog behavior.
The fundamental premise is to envision history as a sequence of dialectical conflicts. Each dialectic begins with a proposition, a thesis, which inherently contains or creates its opposite, an antithesis. Thesis and antithesis. The conflict is inevitable, but the resolution of the conflict yields something new, a synthesis, eliminating the flaws in each, leaving behind common elements and ideas.
Ideology is a map of the world around us. It puts things in context, shows where they are in relation to each other, and allows us to navigate the political and philosophical realm. But a map also shapes what we pay attention to. It's by nature simplified, and it omits more than it illustrates. Being wedded to an ideology, regardless of what it is like having only one map. A road atlas is fine if you're sticking to the roads, but when venturing further afield, it's much more practical to have a big bag full of maps that you can pull from depending on where you are and what you're trying to do. Let the landscape determine the map you use rather than trying to impose your map on the landscape.
Now, sometimes, okay, so Fox and the Hedgehog. I've heard several different stories, several different fables, and each of them really needs to be applied at different points. So the fox knows many things. The hedgehog knows one big thing. The hunters come out and with their dogs, with their guns, and the fox knows a lot. So he's trying to go through every scenario in his head. And he's trying to figure out the best plan. And he's immediately caught or shot. The hedgehog really just knows how to climb into a burrow. So he does that, and he's not found. And it's like, right, knowing one big thing in this scenario is better than knowing multiple different things that weren't actually that helpful. Now, you can also apply this to adaptation. The fox knows how to go through the brambles and also climb a tree, but also knows the snowdrift, but also knows how to escape in a different way. He knows how to hunt maybe one of the smaller dogs instead of being hunted by one of them. But the hedgehog only knows one thing. It tries one thing. Maybe it tries to climb a tree or get into a burrow, but the hunter knows that tactic already and catches it. And it's like maybe he loses a few pins in the process and maybe it hurts, but the hunter still catches it. It's like, okay, do we need adaptation or do we need a wrecking ball?
Foxes are quick and flighty. They'll do what works in any given situation. To mix these metaphors, foxes switch maps whenever it suits them. Kaisar, the hedgehog, only has one. He knows one big thing. Dialectical models can be good tools for analyzing the interaction of ideas, but they're...
By the way, that was the other thing he said, like, okay, ideology is supposed to fit the world, or at the very least, the ideology is how we make sense of the world. The objective world doesn't have an idea of thesis, antithesis, antithesis, or synthesis. Things just happen. It's only we as human beings who put an ideology, put some wisdom to it to make sense of it. So in a lot of ways, the ideology is just whatever you come up with. Now, of course, you want that ideology to fit within the world to some extent, but I think a lot of people kind of lose their minds a little bit about it.
they're kind of trash as the basis for political programs or at predicting the development of human societies and nations. One of the best meta-narrative aspects of New Vegas is that Caesar talks of inevitabilities, and yet the fate of his legion depends entirely on you, the player, and what choices you make. He's trapped in his deterministic model of the world, but his fate is entirely dependent on what you choose to do. But the blinding totalitarianism of his ideology also plays on a more basic level. The Legion is at first glance a fusion of cultures, perspectives, experiences, hammer-forged into a single mold with a single worldview. But it isn't a synthesis. It's a top-down imposition of a single vision. Its constituent cultures aren't absorbed, but brutally destroyed. The men are either conscripted in the Legion army and subjected to its discipline at all times, or killed. The women are enslaved, and any surviving children are raised within the Legion. And for all this fixation on Rome, Caesar jumps straight to the Empire, skipping over the Republic and its long building up of institutions. He's less Caesar and more Alexander, leading his army on a perpetual campaign of conquest. There's a very high probability that, like Alexander, his empire will die with him because it has nothing else holding it together. But he has a very different idea of where it's all going.
Thesis and antithesis. The Colorado River is my Rubicon. The NCR Council will be eradicated, but the new synthesis will change the Legion as well. From a basically nomadic army to a standing military force that protects its citizens and the power of its dictator.
The Legion is 100% committed to this. It's from the ground up an army, not a state, and it's trying to expand too fast to develop any unifying cultural basis beyond military discipline. Its economic capacity seems to barely keep up with keeping the army going for another day on its bloody march to the sea. If, despite Caesar treating war as a ritualized blood sacrifice as much as a means of furthering political or territorial goals, the Legion defeats the NCR, is there any reason to believe it will be able to transition into a stationary state army that holds rather than takes territory and functions as part of a stable society?
You know, that's another thing. You know anything about Warhammer 40K? There's this entire idea that the Imperial Guard regiments, if you fight hard enough and conquer enough worlds, you get to retire on one of the last worlds you conquered. And there's this entire idea that you become the founders. You know, the world you build usually has some rather strong martial honor and military discipline and things like that. And it's like, that's great for a wargaming setting. But I do wonder to what extent a series of planets, or maybe even just a series of countries, where it's all founded by soldiers or warriors, would they have any actual culture outside of it? Would there be a locked-in syndrome? Would they be hyper-focused on one thing, like the hedgehog, and not actually grow beyond it?
The Legion ending tells us only this.
Caesar entered the Strip as though it was his triumph. The Legion pushed the NCR out of New Vegas entirely, driving them back to the Mojave outpost. The Legion occupied all major locations, enslaving much of the population and peacefully lording over the rest. Under the Legion's banner, civilization, unforgiving as it was, finally came to the Mojave Wasteland.
But to simply rule over a conquered population isn't the same as governing or building a stable state. In order to create these kinds of socio-political hybrids, the constituent parts need to have several points of compatibility. It's a process not of synthesis in a philosophical sense, but a much broader idea of cultural diffusion, an exchange of ideas and customs in a natural and haphazard way. Two things taking ideas from each other, but still remaining essentially what they are. It may seem like an academic distinction, but the key is that the Legion is structured in a way that makes the exchange impossible. The whole thing is built on crushing tribal cultures and assimilating the people into this massive Roman knockoff army. There can be no synthesis with the Legion because the Legion can't survive with regional differences and an interplay of ideas. wasteland totalitarian, tolerating nothing outside the state, but skipping the process of actually building that state. There is a way that Kaiser Eddie could do this, but it would involve switching models. If he relaxed the Roman shtick and flipped more toward the Mongols. They didn't attempt to suppress local cultures, and in fact, through trade routes, facilitated an explosion of cultural exchange. Taking over the tax system of conquered kingdoms is much more cost-effective than trying to remake their society. It results in something that could be called synthesis of a sort, but in this case it would involve the Legion becoming more like the NCR than the other way around. Just as the Mongol conquerors adopted customs and languages of the people they ruled and had a tendency to go native, so would the Legion. But this would require Kaiser to relax his grip and take a broader view, to see that philosophy is about thinking, but often doesn't translate directly into doing. And if his goal is truly to build something stable,
A society that could prevent mankind from fracturing and destroying itself in this new world by establishing a new Pax Romana.
he must accept that he can't build a solid foundation and a tower on top of it at the same time. He must prioritize, balance the desired against the attainable, and learn that sometimes the fastest route to a destination isn't plowing straight through a mountain. But then he wouldn't be Kaiser. He'd be some unstoppable synthesis of a hedgehog and a fox, which, hey, it's Fallout. Stranger things roam the world.
Fuck this. I'm going to lie down. Come back later. Tomorrow.
All right. One of the things he just said. What did he say, actually? Let me go back.
To see that philosophy is about thinking, but often doesn't translate directly into doing.
That one. Yeah. Okay. So philosophy is about thinking, and the amount of armchair philosophers that I talk to who have no life experience, no ability to actually engage in the real world is staggering. And it's like, yes, just because you have the philosophy doesn't mean you're going to be good at this. Does not mean that this is even going to be functional. And I think that that needs to get tattooed on a lot of people's eyes as well. The entire narrative of just because it sounds like a good idea doesn't mean it is when the rubber meets the road. Smash cut to the fat electrician talking about communism. And I think that this is another thing. I don't mind you saying, hey, here's the world, and I want to improve it, and I have an idea to improve it. But at a certain point, we have to let go of the control of this. We have to stop trying to force the horse to go in a direction, but instead kind of like nudge. It needs to be more of a collaboration with the world rather than conquering it. Because if you try to build an empire, okay, so for example, this entire thing with Caesar, it's like, yes, you want the world and you want your nation to fit this Roman shtick. But as our boy feral historian said, we could go the other way. We could change ourselves to fit the tribes. This could be an integration. This could be something that actually allows us to change as we change it. But that's scary as hell. For Caesar, for Edward Sallow, I am pretty sure that lack of control would be terrifying. So, and this is, of course, a Fallout game, so we don't have to do a one-to-one allegory. But I know a lot of people who have the same problem, letting go of control of the bus, of the wheel, of the brake, and being like, okay, I'm going to let it drive itself here. Or at least, mostly drive itself while I do some nudges. That's not a good way to drive, but for this allegory, it might be really important to take that in. All right. That's my boy, Feral Historian. Definitely check out his stuff. Is there another Feral Historian I want to check out? There's a few, but I want to take some time to think about it, actually. And let's see. Do I want to talk about VTubers? Not yet. So it's been about 50 minutes. I usually don't stream too long. Let's pause here. I'm going to end stream, go clean up, and I might stream a little bit later today. So if this is the last time I see you guys, be nice to yourself. Do something a little bit difficult. And I'll sending much love from the Shadowlands.